All right, everybody, welcome back to another Ask a Dev DevStream. We're making a video game. If you're just joining us, we're trying to do it in a year. It is roughly speaking, a combat platformer, but it's still in the works. And today we are going to give you another look behind the curtain. These are all about showing you how the game dev goes. I try to package these into little bite-sized lessons, about an hour each. Sometimes they go long, sometimes they're successful, sometimes not. Today we're going to be working on a ray gun. We're working on fracture magic, and the way fracture magic works is it shoots a beam, and the way that the beam.
Have you started the stream?
I think I did, but I did not for you, which is a good segue. It's a good segue for everybody else who's watching. These are live. This is an open conversation. So our community members will hop in, they'll ask questions as we're working along the way, and then usually we'll hang out and talk about game dev stuff afterwards at the end. That's for our Patreon. So huge shout out to Patreon for helping make all of this possible. And with that, let's take a look at what we're building. Thanks for the heads up, Rusty. The stream that goes to YouTube is different than the stream that goes to Discord, so juggling all the stuff is fun. So let me show you where we're at and the mistake. I don't want to say the mistake, but the trouble that we're running into right now with the way I built the beam currently. The idea is, generally speaking, the beam is supposed to do, if we switch to fracture magic, doesn't matter which one of these, the beam is supposed to do damage over time as it overlaps, and it's supposed to have it basically has an overlap detection, and it does basically it's not necessarily damage over time, but as long as you're interacting with the beam, you're getting damaged. However, if we switch the sides here, you can see I'm damaging both characters. That's not really, I realized after the fact, that was not really the intent of the beam. The intent of the beam was it would hit the character, and then it would hit the first character, because there's all kinds of other knock-on effects that happen when you do that. So let's just talk a little bit about how this beam's implemented and what we're going to do to change it. We're using gameplay ability system. So there's a gameplay ability for the fracture beam. This basically goes through, let's see here real quick. Pretty straightforward for the most part. When you activate the ability, it sets the cooldown, and then it applies the gameplay event for the fracture beam, or the gameplay effect. The gameplay effect for the fracture beam, also very straightforward. It is an effect. It has a duration. That's how long the beam lasts. And then it has a game queue tag on it. The game queue tag triggers a game queue notify actor. The game queue notify actor, this is all a very crazy roundabout way of saying that we are spawning an actor using the gameplay ability system that is replication and network safe effectively. That's why we're doing it this way. I do need to log into Perforce real quick, because I noticed I don't have my Perforce stuff going. Let's connect here real quick. Okay, cool. All right, so the game queue notify actor that we're spawning is this beam. Okay, this is, even if you weren't using the gameplay ability system, same thing. You could spawn an actor, or the actor that's using the spell could do all the same stuff. Okay, and all it is, if we look at our viewport, is it's a box. And right now, anything that overlaps this box gets damage. However, that's part of the problem. So on overlap of the box, we check to make sure that it's just the root component, because we don't want to, every single capsule, collision, everything on the character that you're overlapping will trigger the overlap too, so we don't want to do double, triple damage. And then basically once we do that, we go through and we set up these tiered gameplay effects. This is what actually applies all the damage. Right now, this is pretty basic in the sense that it gets the relic path, it checks if we're one of 3 of our possible relic paths, and then depending, beam damage duration might change, the damage might change, all these things might change depending on what level it's at, and then eventually we apply the damage. Now, when we apply the damage, all we're doing, this is pretty straightforward stuff. We're basically, in the end, we're getting a hit result. Okay, we're going through all of the actors that, no, that's not the actors. Oh no, we did that back before. Hold on. Set up tiered gameplay effects. There's that. Oh, actually, we don't have to go through all the actors. What we're doing is, because this gets triggered each time for the actor, what we're doing is we're coming through here, and this is where we're applying the damage. We're saying, and this is also where we apply other things, like, for example, the reason I'm doing it like this is it's not just as straightforward as damage. In here, we might apply damage. We might apply a slow, a disorient, a vulnerability, all kinds of different things. That's why I've basically object-oriented this, made this more procedural and compartmentalized so that I can use the same thing to call damage or vulnerability or heal or whatever I want. Okay. So this now makes sense as to why this is a problem, because on overlap, this is going to trigger for every single actor that's overlapped. But it's also not necessarily aware, like there's not an easy way to get the first character that's overlapped. So what we're going to do today is we're going to rebuild this so that it's more like a ray gun that will actually stop at the first actor that it hits. So that's what we're doing now. And the reason we're doing that is because Pierce is insanely strong. It's way stronger than I meant it to be. Now, the way we're going to do this is, let's compile and save this. I don't know what I changed, but it's fine. I am going to duplicate this game queue notify actor, and this is going to be fracture beam. We're going to call this a trace beam. Beam trace, beam trace. Let's go beam trace. Okay, the reason being is we're going to use a line trace instead. So rather than using a box and checking overlap, we're just going to use a line trace instead. So we're going to rebuild this whole thing with a line trace. So let's just change this. Now everything should already be in here. We're going to have to redo a bunch of stuff. We do need to change this gameplay queue to be a different tag, because otherwise we'll get both. It'll trigger both. So let's add a new tag here. And this is going to be fracture beam trace. Except it didn't fracture beam trace, so we'll switch it. Okay, so now the way we trigger this gameplay queue notify actor is we need to go back to our fracture beam, and rather than triggering fracture beam, we need to trigger fracture beam trace. So see, we could actually trigger both, but we don't want to trigger both. So we're just going to do the one. Compile and save. All right, now, just to make sure, I'm going to make sure everything else is closed. And we are going to, let's make a simple change just to make sure that we are showing the right one. This is distance. Let's see if we can change the color of it real quick just to double check it. This is a fracture beam. Let's change the electric color, ELEC underbar color, for our trace beam. So let's just set parameter. Is that a linear? What is that? This is a, what kind of variable is this? Does it tell us? I think it's a linear color. So let's set Niagara parameter linear color. This is user.elec_color. And let's make a color out of this. And let's just go wicked green. Let's go 100 on green. Now let's just go like 10 on green. All right. And then when we trigger this now, theoretically, we should have a green beam just to make sure we're, yeah. So you can see the green electricity here, right? Not the whole beam is green, but the big thing is I want to make sure I'm not accidentally changing the wrong beam. So I just like to do that as a sanity check. Okay. So we know that's working. I'm not going to mess with that. All right. Now, couple things we need to change. We are not going to be using this overlap anymore. Okay? What we need to do is we actually kind of need to turn on tick for this guy, so that we either need to turn on tick or we need to set up a timer. We might as well just turn on tick and then use tick, and we'll change the rate. I'm going to keep these overlaps around, sort of. I'm going to disconnect them so they're here. But we're going to get rid of, should we get rid of this box? You know what, it's not going to hurt us to keep it. Let's just keep the box right now. And then for our class defaults, let's check to see if our tick is turned on. Because a lot of times in these game queues, their tick is off. Control-Shift-W, let's make this a little bigger for you all to read. 1.1. Okay, so you'll notice start with tick enabled is unchecked. Okay, so we're going to go checked, and we're going to change our tick to 0.1. We don't need to be ticking every frame. We just need to tick every time we want to do damage and potentially redraw the beam. Now, there's a potential disconnect between the way the beam looks and all those kinds of things. We're gonna get into that here in a second. All right, now that we got that, let's add our tick. I'm going to move some of this stuff up and make room for tick. Okay, so let's add tick, event tick. I'm going to add the call to the parent function. I don't know that we need to do that, but it's there just in case. Okay, now what we're going to do in the tick is we're going to do a line trace. Line trace for objects, I believe. Or we could by channel. I'm trying to think about where else we do this. Let's do this. Line trace. Line trace. I'm trying to remember where else we do this. Weapon melee. Projectile instant hit. This is all VF. This is all like not even our stuff. So that's not what we want. That's shooter core. That's shooter core. I want one that we did. That's the beam trace. Line trace by channel. And we have multi-line trace for objects. So this is in our dash. So we're doing a line trace by channel in the visibility channel. And we're ignoring our player character. Interesting. That might work. We are also using line trace by objects as well. Checking line of sights is line trace by channel. Okay, so let's do line trace by channel. So we're going to do line trace by channel. So let's go line trace by channel. Okay, and the start point is going to be where our hero character is. The person who is doing this thing. Okay? And then our endpoint is going to be, we could also, by the way, we could also start it from the game queue notify actor. Reason being is our game queue notify actor is attached to our player in initialize or on become relevant. Now our endpoint, let's do, I swear we were doing something like this. Yeah, we can do this. We can get the actor rotation what we need to do is we need to pick a point that's in front of us. Okay, so we're going to get the actor rotation, and then we're going to get the forward vector from this. That's going to give me a vector that should be normalized. I think this is normalized. Rotate the world. No. Vector. Get rotation X vector. That's what I want. Okay. All right, cool. And then let's multiply this by a value. The value that we're doing this is we're going to do the range. Do we have the range in here as a float? Damage radius. That works. Because that's the same thing as the range. Okay. So with that, that's our distance. And then we need to take that and we need to add that to the start point. So this is all vector fun. Okay. The way all we're doing is we're taking two vectors, we're adding them together so that we can figure out where our endpoint is. If this is fuzzy for you, I have a video on vectors, but basically imagine two arrows and we're basically sticking them on top of each other so that they point to the right place. And we are going to draw a debug for a duration. And the duration is going to be, let's do 0.1 because that's our tick. Our trace is going to be red. We're tracing on visibility. What's interesting is, I don't know if we need a world context object plugged in here. Let's get a reference to self and plug it in for fun. Compile that. Okay, so all this is doing is a line trace. It should be drawing a line if we've got it connected right. So let's compile and save that. And let's play. Let's go eye, fracture beam. Everything else should be, oh, we may not be able to see it because the effects are. Okay, but there's a line trace. Oh, okay, couple things. This is working. Ooh. Okay, so this is working. You can see the green line, right? That's still happening, but we also see the big red box. And the big red box is there because it's hitting ourselves. That's not the button I wanted to press. It's hitting ourselves. We don't want to hit ourselves. There's usually an actors to ignore, so we are going to ignore the pawn. So let's make this. Nope, that's not what I wanted. Let's make an array. Okay. Cool. Now let's check this again. Press play. Fracture, Ashen Purifier, beam. Okay. So there it is. It's hitting. You can now see it's hitting the green guy, and it might be easier if we just do this guy. So we get a red beam if it hits the enemy character, and if I switch sides, it does not switch sides. We do need to take into account it only shoot. Okay, so we got a couple things. Our line trace only shoots to the right, which is weird because I thought it would take into account the rotation, but it's not. So we do need to fix that. So let's go ahead and do that. We're getting the actor rotation, are we not? Interesting. Let's get the forward vector. Let me see get the forward vector. Let's try that one instead. I just want to see if either of these change or if that's. There we go. Okay, now it goes both ways. Oh, okay, I know what's happening. That's not what it is at all. That's not what it is at all. Okay, this is correct. This works. I think this works. Let's go back to what we had. What's happening is if we switch, you'll notice that when I activate this, the line switches directions. The minute the ability ends, it no longer switches directions anymore. The reason being is because that actor is no longer attached. It's like inactive. So it does work correctly as long as the effect is active effectively. Okay, so, but our line trace is working, so that's cool. Now what we need to do is we need to take our out hit and we need to break this. Okay, and then we get a distance here. What I want to do with this distance is I want to use that to set the beam length. So right here, this user distance, I want to set this. So there's a couple things that we could do. And I think the best thing to do is we could spawn a beam every tick. I don't like that. What I want to know is if we update the distance each time, will it update correctly? So let's do this. And I want to make a change here because right now this is called event VFX. The reason I do this way, just so you understand my thinking, is whenever I spawn VFX in a game queue or an actor or ability, I store them. I store them in these arrays called spawn VFXs or whatever. The reason I do that is because when the ability ends, a lot of times, maybe not here, I'll go through and I'll, oh, I think I actually do it in cease relevant. Cancel, yeah, spawn VFX. I basically go through and destroy them all. So it's like, it's a way for me to keep track of all of those things so that as I'm working through these, anytime I don't worry about cleanup. I set up cleanup at the beginning, then whatever I spawn, as I'm like crazy wild man thinking of whatever it is I want to do, and I'm spawning crazy number of effects, I just add them to this array and then I clean them up at the end. This is a special case now where we have this one effect that we want to update as we go. So I think I'm going to make it its own variable, and if we want to do the same thing for the other VFXs, we can. So we're gonna actually, you know what we're gonna do? We're gonna do this two ways, both ways. Cake and eat it too. I am going to take this one in particular, and I'm gonna promote this to another variable. And this variable is gonna be called this is going to be beam VFX. Okay. So now I've got a handle to it and it's stored in my array. It does both. It'll get cleaned up at the end and now I can access it specifically. If later on I add more VFX for like there's like a smoke field and all those kinds of things, I can just tag them onto the end of this and not worry about it, which is cool. Let me just double check my audio, make sure it's still coming through. Looks like it. Okay, cool. Now, what we were saying was what we wanted to try to do was on our tick, which is here, with this hit result, let's take this beam VFX now, get our handle to it, and let's set variable float. Okay, and the one that we want to set, I believe, is called distance, right? User distance. And what we're going to set that to is we're going to set that to the distance. Okay, and we're not going to draw our debug anymore. None for the debug, just so that we can see if this is working. However, we do want to do one other thing. If we don't hit something, we do want to set a minimum length. So if we get a blocking hit, this is what we're going to do. If we don't, we're going to set the distance to be the full length. which is the radius. I think that's what we need. Let's find out how we did. Fracture, beam, 11. Oh, that's changing size. That's definitely changing size. Okay, so now, interesting. When I first spawn it, that is not 600 units. Oh, I see. The beam starts off 600 and immediately snaps to 300. What the? How's that possible? Also, I keep meaning to take this track out of the track. Oliver Michael running. Remind me to do that next time. Okay. Why is that the case? So when we come in here, when we first spawn, we are getting the distance. Effect. Find reference by name. Oh, I see. We're passing in 600, but we're actually using the radius. So what does the spell call for? I thought it was... This is what I'm looking at. This is my design doc. Range is supposed to be 5 meters. Then it goes to 7. 5, 6, 7. Okay. So the radius should be 500, not 600 and not 300. None of those are right. So let's figure out where this radius is coming from. We're setting the radius here by name. Handle vengeance, but we're not doing vengeance. This is, yeah, we're not doing vengeance anymore. Event graph. Event initialize. Okay, we have not set up our tiered. Oh, we do. Here's our tiered overlaps. This is beam duration, beam damage, 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 damage. Radius is not being set anywhere in here. This is in vengeance, which we're not even using. So let's get rid of handle vengeance to clean things up for ourselves. Handle vengeance. We are in the right, yes, we're in the right place. No more vengeance. What? It's in use. By name. On remove. Handle vengeance. What does this do? This looks for all the overlapping afters. Oh, actually no, we want vengeance. Vengeance is the wrong name. This should be handle finishing moves or whatever. We'll figure out what that's going to be called. We want to keep that. That's not what we want. That's not what we want to change. But in this setup tiered, this we do need to make sure we're calling, because ultimately this is where we're going to be setting beam damage duration and all these things. Oh, this gets tricky. And this is GE damage over. Interesting. Okay, we have some complexity here. And the reason is I wonder, are we still doing damage to both? Hold on. Are we doing any damage at all right now? No. We're doing no damage right now. Okay. So we're not applying any damage. That makes sense because we're not using the overlaps anymore. All right, so what we need to do is a couple things. We need to set up our tiered overlaps. We should probably do this. Specifically, what is this doing? This is getting our damage. This is setting all the stuff for each of our paths. And then based on that, this is setting up the damage. I think we want to remove this. And just return here. Return. Reason being is we just want to do the setup. We want to set up the base damage amounts and all those kinds of things. One of the things that we want to set up in here is our radius. And rather than calling it radius, GC, is this not exposed? Cool. Let's rename this. Damage range. Don't apostrophe, really? Okay. And our default range should be 500, not 300. And then for example, the way this works is for Ashen Purifier, what we're going to do is we're going to increase the range each step. So let's go, we're going to set the damage range. So this would be, for example, 600. If you're at tier 1. And then we're going to make this 700, for example. And actually what I think I want to do is let's keep this at 500. Let's go 600 and then we'll jump to 8. I want the last one to be pretty meaningful. So I'm probably going to change these numbers again. I may drop this down to, I may drop the default amount down to 400, for example. So we'll start with 4, then we'll go to 5, 6, and then 8. And that'll feel like a big jump when you get to tier 3. So let's just check that. Does that work first? Oh, wait, we're not calling that. We need to at least be calling that. So what we want to do is we don't want to do this on tick. We don't need to do this on tick. We only need to do this when we initialize because you can't start this spell, bring up your equipment menu, add more shards, and then close it and re-trigger it fast enough for it to do anything. So what we're going to do is when we initialize, just before we trigger our effects, let's do setup setup tiered overlap for the GEs. Okay, and in here, so now that all gets set, so we should have actual numbers. Still not doing damage yet. That's okay. We just want to make sure that the beam actually does change length. So if we go in here, we equip Fracture, Ashen Purifier. That's the only one I did. I'm going to face away from this thing. Remember, each of these boxes on the ground represents 100 units. So when I trigger this, it goes 1, 2, 3, 4. So the first one is 400. So if I switch this to tier, wait a minute. Also, why is this happening with my UI? I fixed this. Okay, anyways, so this should now go 500. That seems suspect to me. Let's try 600. That's definitely getting longer. And then let's try our top tier. So 800, that's 4 or 5, that's only getting 600. Like, why is that? fracture beam. So either we're not, oh, because we're not using the values? Did we not actually plug in the value? So event graph, no, we plugged it in. On tick, damage range, yeah. Or the damage range gets the distance. So let's see here. It should be this one. So let's print string here. And we're going to print the damage range. I want to know what it's setting it to. Fracture magic, ashen purifier, F11. And if we do an E, 400. Okay, that's correct. Then if we pump this up, still 400. Oh, okay. I know why. Do I know why? Hold on a second. 500. Oh, no, that's what we said it was. The first one you didn't get it changed. The second one, tier 2, you did, okay? So this was 404. We're going to go back and look at that just to make sure. And then this is 800. 600. Hold up a second. Something suspect here. When we set up our tier GEs, $500, $600, $800 default. So it's not coming through here properly. Something's happening. Let's put a breakpoint here. Let's pick up all of our shards. Standing at the edge of this box. Yeah, what is happening with this UI? That's super frustrating because that's not supposed to happen. Okay, so when we hit the E, oh shoot, I messed up. I can't do this with this full screen like this. Here we go. Play. Let the bad guy come past me so I can see how far the beam's going. Bring up fracture, ashen purifier, press E. Okay, so we hit this. What tier are we? It's almost like it wasn't set. It's set there though. So if we hit E, we're setting this up. No debug data. There it is, ashen purifier, tier 0. That seems wrong. That seems really wrong. So that would be why that didn't change length. Tier 1. Oh. Wait a second. That's not tier 1. The tiered system is not working quite right for fracture magic for some reason. That's why we're never getting to 800, because we're never getting to tier 3. Wait, is that true? That's tier 1. Yeah, because tier 2 is tier 1. We're off. Something's off here. I wonder if that's happening for all of them. Okay, that's okay though, because we can still keep going just knowing that's a bug that I can fix later. If I go ahead and press E now, We should be at tier 2, I believe. Yeah, we are. So we should be coming through here. So now we're going to get the 600 range. Yep, and if we count the squares, we are. Okay, cool. So that's working. All right, we don't need that print anymore. Because our problem is not with the effects or the setting. Okay, so we are setting all this stuff up. The beam is changing length. All that's working. We'll go ahead and test at tier, max tier. That's fine. The last thing we need to do is damage. So once we trigger this hit, we do a line trace by channel. We should check to see if it's an enemy actor. Let's see here. This is the damage that we want to do here. But we don't want to do damage over time. But we want all of this stuff. Okay, so let's move this back out to our event graph. And what we're going to do is we're going to make a couple changes. Okay, first things first. Beam damage duration, we don't need. Oh, yes, we do, actually. I'll explain why in a second. But the other thing that's interesting is our beam damage duration is not actually a variable that we have defined out here in the wild. I guess that was a local variable in our setup tiered overlaps. It was. So big mistake. This should have been called local. So I knew it was a local variable. I like to prefix these with local. All right. And then what we're going to do is we're just going to make, we can do damage amount. That's the same. And then we can duplicate that, I think. Let's put all our floats together so I can figure out what's going on. Okay. We're also going to get rid of all these extra tiered things. Okay. Status vectoration is cool. Duplicate duration, I don't think we need anymore. Set and get. We're going to rename that because that's going to end up being the fog duration. We may use that later. Duplicate health, we should not be using. We can get rid of that. Duplicate health. Damage amount, heal amount, and damage range. That's fine. I would need a damage duration. So let's go damage duration. Now the reason I need this is because we're doing this on tick. I need to calculate how much damage to do per tick based on the tier. That's what's going on. That's why I need that. So back in here in our setup tiered overlaps, you can see that we have these local beam and damage, etc. There's division. This division figures out the total damage divided by the number of ticks, gives you the amount per tick effectively. But what we need to do is before we do this, we need to set our damage amount and we need to set our damage duration. And then what we can do, we could just do can just plug it in like this. So that's going to give us those values. What I was thinking was we could just divide it and just pass back damage per tick as a single variable, so we don't have to do any more math, and maybe that's the way to go. But I gotta think about this effect duration thing too. Okay, so let's just, for now, let's just try that. And then when we go back to our event graph, what we've got is we've got our damage amount is gonna go in here. And our damage duration is gonna go right here. Okay. And then the hit actor should come from this. And then we need to get the Lyra ability system from that actor. So what we're going to do is we're going to get Lyra ability system component from actor. Delete this. Plug this in here. And then if we got a hit, we're going to do damage. Let's take all this and move it down. Okay, so we got our damage, duration, etc. Now, this is GE damage over time. We don't need this one. We should just be able to use damage instant. Damage. Is it damage basic instant? Is that what we want? Let's double check. This is in damage basic instant. Instant basic. And damage taken. Damage execution. No, this is not the one we want. That must be left over from before. So let's see what we got here. It's this one. Because this is instant damage, and you'll see that the amount can be set by caller. This is the one we want. It is confusing that we have two of those in different folders. We will have to figure that out, but let's see how we did. Fracture, Ashen Purifier. Definitely not doing damage. Okay, let's trace this. Fracture beam. Do we get to here? Well, that's interesting. Now it's triggering. Okay. Doesn't seem like it's triggering reliably. Actors to ignore. Why is that hitting? Oh, because the line trace is active even between. Okay, hold on a second. We need to make a change here. This line trace is happening all the time. Every tick. Okay, we do not need to do this every tick. We need to do it every tick while it's active. The way that we know it's active is on become relevant. We initialize it. When we initialize it, we set it to be is initialized. So in our tick, we're going to change this to only do this if b initialize is true. Okay, that will help us debug this a little bit. Compile and save. Play. I fracture Ashen Purifier. Go I. Let's equip some stuff. Okay. We are not getting. There we go. We got one. What is the hit actor? Unknown actor. Well, that's why we're not. This isn't going to work because we're not actually hitting the enemies. Okay, new plan. Cast to enemy. Enemy 2D base. If that succeeds, then we'll apply damage. I don't think we're ever going to hit that breakpoint. So if we go fracture Ashen Purifier. Yeah, we're not hitting that breakpoint. So our line trace for channel is not working. Which is interesting. Oh. Okay. New plan. Dude, if this is the problem, y'all are gonna be like, what? Okay, let's do this. I want to try to show you something to see if this is what I think the problem is. Let's turn on debug for the duration. Let's go back in and let's change. We're gonna do a couple things here. We're gonna bring up Ashen Purifier. We're gonna go max speed. Okay, and then let's turn on collision. Okay. And then what I also want to do is I want to go slow-mo real quick because I'm going to need a second. When I press E, okay, that is hitting. What is that hitting? If it's okay, this isn't what I thought it was. But what I thought it was I thought that maybe the line was behind the actor. See how it's behind the actor? So our player is slightly behind the enemies. It should be the opposite. The player's supposed to be in front of the enemy so you can always see your health because it's 2D, right? So I thought that might be it, but clearly this is hitting. It's clearly hitting this. I don't know why that's not registering as a hit though. Oh, because on my, because I have the logic backwards. That's why. If it's a hit, we want to do this. Okay, I've got this backwards. If it's a hit, we want to set this. Not the other way around. I have the logic completely reversed. All right, this is it. 3 minutes left. I think we figured it out. Okay, here we go. No trace. We're going all the way in. No debug. This is totally gonna work. All right, play. I fracture. Go for the whole thing. Nice. It's doing 0 damage. But it is hitting him. Oh wait. Then it started doing damage. Why was it? Also, it should stop doing damage afterwards, and it hasn't. Oh, wild. It's still... Oh, because I took out the active. That's why. That's kind of funny. Why did it not do damage the first time through though? That's weird. Okay, so we need to put this back in. We definitely need this. Okay, and the first time through, distance. Oh. Because maybe it hasn't initialized yet. That could be why. Fracture, full tilt. Let's try this again. F11. Interesting. So the first time through, it does not do damage. The second time through, it does. But we no longer have damage hanging around. I think that maybe our initialize is not happening. Also, that enemy passing through the other one. Like clearly. Oh wait, I think I know what's happening. Maybe not. There's something going on here where if the beam's not adjusting for when the white enemy passes in front of the purple one. Like why is the beam still going through to the purple one? It's interesting. It works when I adjust. It works fine on just that character alone. Okay, let's think about this. On tick, if we're initialized, we're getting the hero's location. We're adding a vector to it. We're doing a trace. Let's do for duration again. I want to see something. My brain's thinking, you all. I'm trying to figure out why. Where's the ghost in the machine with this? Clearly hits, clearly hits. Come back this way. Come back this way. Look at that. It's going right through it. That is so weird. It's visible. We know it hits fine. Alright, in these events, we're going to do one other thing. We're going to do a sphere trace by channel. Need a little bit more room. Okay, and we're going to hijack all this stuff. Connected in the out hit. Okay. Actors to ignore. Same. Self is the world context. Start and end. Radius is, let's do 40. And let's call that good. And sure, we'll even draw it for a duration of 0.1. Just so we can see it. Fracture magic. All the way. Okay, clearly hitting. Not doing damage at all in the first round. Okay, that updates properly. So it's like the line trace is somehow missing. Maybe it's too thin. Maybe it's because these two are in. That clearly updates though. Okay, so it's possible. We'd have to look into why the line trace is missing and why we have to do the sphere trace. But it definitely picks it up. And that's what I want. So the big thing that we have to figure out now is if we go back to this and we turn off our duration, we can go back to none, go back to play. We just got to figure out what's not initialized when we first start, because our base damage is set to 0 right now. Which is kind of hilarious, actually. That's pretty good. That is pretty good. That is also an hour. So, what I'm thinking is we're gonna call that a victory. We got a beam working. We've got a couple things to troubleshoot. I'm not gonna necessarily torture you all with the troubleshooting of it. My guess is what's happening is our initial damage, our base damage amount is 0, and there's something about the order of when we initialize and we figure out what our tiered rating is. We haven't done that before the first tick happens. So what we need to do is if it's not initialized, we need to initialize it, is kind of what I'm saying. But I'm going to call that like no blue screens of death. We actually got the beam to change sizes. There's a lot of cool things in here. At this point, I'm going to go away and I'm going to be working on disability, and we're going to be adding in things like when it ends, or the first character it hits, it adds a cloud of vulnerability to it. There's like all kinds of different things that it does. But we have now all of kind of like the framework we need to get that done without it being too OP. And we kept the piercing version around. Maybe we'll use that for another ability type. Maybe there's a new tier in the future based on feedback that will update and change stuff like that. So that's today's dev stream. Rusty was pretty quiet in there. Did you have any questions for the stream before we call it a wrap?
No, it was being quiet because it was happening so fast. So it's great.
Okay, cool. Well, I'll hang out here in a second. Let me wrap up the stream and I'll be right back. Everybody else, thanks for checking out the channel. Thanks for being part of this adventure. There's more devlogs, more artwork, more stuff coming. Make sure if you like what we're doing, help spread the word. We've got the Patreon, we've got tips, we've got all those things. Every little bit helps. We're making this game. Hopefully it's going to be fun. The reason it's going to be fun is because of y'all's input and help. So very much appreciate all your help. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day, weekend, etc. I will see you all on the next one. Take it easy.